The last two-thirds of the course, the focus is primarily a tool focus. There are still some good exercises for our self-assessment, but the primary focus is that of a tool focus. One of the first things we work on as far as a tool focus is about breaking patterns. It seems like in life we get caught up in patterns, just things that we do over and over and over again, like the person who's caught in a refrigerator halfway through a chocolate cake. And so, well, what am I doing here? So, since I'm here, might as well finish the sucker. There is a sense of completing patterns. A very simple example of that, what I'd like every one of you to do is just to cross your arms. Just cross your arms in a way that's comfortable for you. And I'd like you to notice how you cross your arms. I'd like you to look at your neighbors, notice who's doing it the right way, and then notice who's doing it the wrong way. Then what I'd like you to do now is to recross your arms exactly the opposite way. Now, how many of you had to think a little bit to do that? And when you got it the opposite way, for how many of you was it a little uncomfortable, felt unnatural, didn't feel like you? And I believe that is the way it is with every one of our patterns. We've been doing them for so long, we don't have to think to do them. Just like with my procrastination. I've been doing it for so long, it was just me. With my cynicism, I just was. With my distrust, I just didn't. Just like I had a friend once who said, Jim, just trust. I said, no. That I believe there's a thought, and I think I remember doing it a lot, saying, oh, well, just don't do that anymore. I mean, if I would have had a switch here, I'd have pushed it a long time ago. Because I knew the distrust wasn't helping the quality of my relations, wasn't helping me. And I believe that is true with every one of what you call your bad habits. I believe if you could just stop it, you would. That quick. But there's a reason you aren't. And what this course is designed is to get to the root of that. Why? And then how to set a structure strong enough and set up enough support that so you can design a new pattern. I've seen people in a 5-day course turn around what I believe was a very strong internalized pattern. And I also believe that's rare. But I know in this course you will get the tools, the insights necessary. You will turn around those patterns. You will. The second thing we work on is about making choices. What makes it difficult as far as making choices, once again, is that perfectionist in us. That fear of foolishness, fear of failure. What if I pick the wrong one? What if this doesn't work for me? And I think what was difficult for me is I always had this fear of what if I pick the wrong one? And so if I had two choices, I would break out into a cold sweat, and then I would try to do both of them. And what this is about more embracing, here's my choice, and have more clarity, given that self-assessment, to make a clear choice. Even, I mean, think how many of you have a hard time saying no. I mean, I even had a hard time, I mean, I had to practice on my cat first. It was just like I would say, no. Do you still love me? I mean, it was so hard for me. I remember very clearly a time somebody asked me to do something. In my head, I thought, I don't want to. What came out of my mouth is, oh, I suppose so. I had this far to travel and it turned around. It was so difficult for me to do a simple thing of stating my preference. Also, about stress reduction. Given that I have an active life, how to decrease my amount of negative stress. About building confidence. How to start turning down that self-critical voice and turn one up that is more self-honoring. And also how to do that with the people around me. Many managers in my courses have talked about what a gift it is, because given that perfectionist mind, it's easier for us to notice what's not working than what is. And just to help tune my brain, to help building the confidence of others, I think is a gift to any manager, About relationship effectiveness. So what can I do to have a stronger, more cohesive team on my job? What can I do to have my friends be closer? Even with my wife, I had a hard time. My wife and I had what was called a dance of intimacy. My wife would get very close to me. I'd get uncomfortable, so I distanced myself. She'd notice I distanced myself, her feelings would be hurt, so she distanced herself. I'd noticed her feelings were hurt, so I'd get close again. She'd notice I was close, so she'd get close again. I'd get uncomfortable, so I'd distance again. It kind of went like that. And it was, it wasn't, I mean, it's ludicrous to think that I wouldn't want to be close to my wife, but there was just something in me that would stop. I remember even in very intimate times, there'd be a part of me that was always separate. And I would be setting strategy. I would be directing myself. Even with friends, it was, thank you, that's close. No, thank you, that's close. And I went over every one of my relationships, and I picked them apart and found a common denominator in every one of my relationships. It was me. I had a lot of work to do. And when I look back on this course, I would pay 1,000 times my tuition just to keep what helped me get close to my wife again. And this is, when we talk about relationship effectiveness, we're talking about every relationship you have. What is it now that stops you from connecting, and what can you do to have more cohesion with the people you care about and the people you work with? About conflict resolution. I think one of the top things people tend to give their power to is negativity. I mean, think who's the most powerful person in your job. I would bet it's the one that's most negative. They come in here just, and you go, fine, you can have it. You can have mine too. Please, please don't hurt me. Those people tend to get their way because of our fear of conflict. And not only are they the most powerful person when you're in your office, think who's the most powerful person as soon as they leave. I mean, as soon as they walk out the door, it's just a blah, 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 blah. And everybody else is going, oh, blah, blah. One of the few times I see us set up support is for that negativity. We go to everybody else and we go, oh, blah, blah, and they go, oh, blah, 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 blah. That person is walking down the hall with all their power in their back pocket. They don't even know they have it. It's so easy for us to do that. And I think what a lot of us, what I did, I would ignore conflict, or I would hope it would go away. Some people dive in and escalate. But what this is very good tools to embrace the conflict and to work constructively with it. I remember I had an 18-year-old in one of my classes, and he got up in front of the whole group, which I thought in itself took amazing courage, amazing courage. And he got up in front of the group and he said, how many of you have used algebra in the last 2 weeks? There was 2 hands. I believe he was shocked. Then he said, how about world history? I don't remember how many hands that time, but he said, how many of you wish you would have had these tools we just learned about conflict in the last 2 weeks? It was unanimous. He said, why is it that people think I should know this stuff? I mean, where was I supposed to learn? He said, my parents don't have these tools. He said, they don't teach it in school. How was I supposed to find out? He said, I'm getting so much value from this course. He said, I'm starting to see the value of algebra. I was talking to him on the break right afterwards. And he said, Jim, I'm finally starting to see the value of learning. He said, the only reason I've ever gotten good grades in school was so I wouldn't get in trouble. So my teachers wouldn't be mad at me, and so my parents wouldn't be mad at me. And I thought, I thought, what a brilliant kid, because what he told me, what he'd learned to do is he would retain information long enough to be tested on it, and as soon as the test was over, he would dump the information. He saw no value in learning. The only value he saw was in getting grades. And I told him, I said, you know, you aren't alone. I mean, many adults, the only reason they do their jobs is so they don't get in trouble, so they can pay their bills, so that their boss isn't angry at them. And he said, what a shame. And I said, yeah, that we spend a third of our lives on the job for most of us.